in case I couldn't figure that out, here's the corner and the direction I'm supposed to go. Like, where the hell else would I go? But just imagine when this road, because I hate to call it a trail and demean it, which goes that long sweep down that way, and then here the next long sweep up here, was actually finished off, and all this rock and this roadway was in excellent shape. How neat it must have looked, but why the investment? This indicating I just continue right on the trail. I joke about these signs and having so many of them where it's so obvious where I go, but I'm glad they have them. It's always reassuring. Out for a morning stroll. Imagine how the world must seem to it if it didn't live in this environment and could view the speed with which things are happening around it. Does it even perceive the speed at which I'll pass over the top of it? Here, nature's water is added to man's thievery in breaking down this incredible monument to earlier man's physical industry. When he lands in a line with me, so I can only see an edge. I have to move off to the side without disturbing him. Here the spider has spread his web, or at least a filament, across probably 20 or 25 feet of open space from that tree to the rocks to my right. There, the tree it must be coming from. And here this. Now what's interesting is why, if it's not a web, and it doesn't appear to be, he must be hanging at this juncture because animals come this way, big animals, and maybe that way he gets to land on an animal and either gets something from them like a tick does, or transports them to another area, and that's his species' method of moving. Here this butterfly has an excellent camouflage device. He's on a white rock with lots of black moss. Wonder if that's intentional. Sign depicts the obvious. We're right at a switchback. Here's a chunk of well-built wall on an inside face. Again, testifying to what an incredible attempt this was made. They did a fine job of this, not just build a road and the supporting walls for it, but then walls on the left side. And you'll notice that the trail that goes further up is nowhere near here, so it wasn't like it was the wall of a supporting wall of the upper trail. Now we're getting towards the top of the mountain and its rock face, where large stones are tumbling down and landing and or destroying the wall. We're shooting the underside of this one. I'll do a slow 360 now that I'm way up on top of the mountain with the road on it. The trail continues behind me. Back that way, the Adriatic and Italy. Here the trail continues as a trail, a hiking trail, back through here to a couple of, at least two small towns that were noted on rocks. Here up at this height we can see what looks like the evidence of sedimentary rock that's been uplifted, number one, but then uplifted at some point in time almost vertical. Here vertical almost, and there just slightly off of vertical, and then raised up, of course, to this elevation, and that one. Here another gun emplacement above the trail I had already hiked up, as you can see right there. I hiked around the trail, up the trail and around and up to the top up there, and then came back down through here. Now I'll exit down this way somehow. Now this gave pretty darn good coverage to the town and actually to the area outside the town over there to the left and to the harbor. This is a pretty plant, isn't it? Looks like something you might find under the sea. Here we're looking down on the top of the wall. Including some of the switchbacks up. You wonder if there are animals still up on slopes like that. Good example of how nature, probably water, has done the damage. Notice how it's bulging out right there as the water underneath makes the soil unstable and it moves downhill, as opposed to that wall beyond it, which is more secure. These are the guys that really can handle this kind of slope, including that really steep area we saw, and somehow enjoy this foliage up here. Hoping there's some kind of access into the back of the castle. There's a couple of pathways there. Hopefully they go into the walls somehow. The top stand over there said that I could get to the fortress, or to the wall, going down this pathway, so looks logical. Here are the remnants of some stone buildings, fairly long ones here. Probably military barracks, military buildings in support of this end of the fortress. Although there may have been a church over in this area here. Now this was and may still be a small used church. I'm a bit surprised this was an entire village at one time, military or otherwise. But look at the size of those stones. That was no slouch of a job. And here's our little church. The original building, and then off to the side, this smaller building. Certainly a majestic surroundings. Here we get a little look inside. Still some of the blue color from one era of frescoes, but they're disappearing fast. Maybe even a face up there. But otherwise not much to be seen. Probably the underlying blue base color. Some lapidarium remains of some worked stone. It almost looks like this is a closed off canyon unless there's a hole through that vertical slot. Looking high on that slope, you can see patches of stonework, like right there in the middle. And then I'll swing across here. And then certainly down through here. All of that probably was terraced at one time and built up. You can see it here. Must have been quite a little place at one time. As I said, no slouch of a job getting some of these rocks in place. Here we're in the middle of an entryway with a niche on the right. And a fairly good sized building, perhaps a house, who knows, but there's a niche. Usually everywhere in most cultures reserved for some kind of religious token or totem. Many times in the past, someone has stood right where I'm standing now and surveyed a completed building, watching the activity of their neighbors, knowing its history, feeling a part